Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
It's live.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
All right. Am I ready? Good. All right. Greetings and welcome to Live Talk. I am your host, Arthur Jeremiah, alongside my co-host, the minister, Samuel.
Welcome back to Live Talk.
Indeed it is. It's always a joy to be in the presence of our audience to speak about some great information. But before we get into that, let's go to our general statement and our disclaimer.
General statement. Live Talk is proudly powered by TBS Goodwill, Builders of the Highway Foundation, and Men of Purpose. Together, we're bringing about awareness to the everyday challenges facing individuals, communities, and our nation. We tell our stories, listen to yours, and always respect different perspectives. Want to share your voice? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com to be a guest, or if you would like to contribute to our mission, purpose, go to livetalkorl.com to give a donation. Disclaimer. Information provided during this event and others to come does not constitute the official opinion of Live Talk or its affiliate entities. It is strongly recommended that viewers seek independent expert advice regarding any topics discussed, as legal requirements differ significantly across jurisdictions and are subject to frequent changes. If you have questions or concerns, you can always email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Facebook and or Instagram at Live Talk Orlando.
All right. We had to get that out the way. Minister, happy Sunday. How you doing, sir?
You're having a wonderful Sunday. It's always a wonderful day to wake up when we got the sun shining, and just be a part of the beauty that we got in the universe.
Indeed. Yes, sir. Well, season 4, episode 10. What you think about that?
Whoa, yes. Hey, it's just so much going. We brought so much forward.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had a point that so many things are happening. So it's always good to be here to talk about it.
Indeed it is. I mean, we done came a long way. Season 4, episode 10. You know, 10 represents completion, you know, part of that perfection that is. So it's just a series of episodes up to this point, and we get to start another season. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
All right, so let us just give the audience a rundown of the show today. First, we'll have the minister word of today or quote. Right after that, we'll go to a short commercial break, and then we'll come back with our main topic, which is navigating the new landscape of education in Florida, understanding recent legislative changes. You know, there was many laws that was passed, and since we was talking about trades, you know, versus, you know, trade school versus college, we want to kind of keep it on the educational side of things. So there are some laws that we want to be mindful of. And so we're going to share those laws today, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. But right after that, we'll go to another commercial break, and then we'll come back. We may speak on some, you know, we always want to talk about local and community stuff. Like, you know, one of the main thing is the local, you know, voting locally.
Yes.
We can't emphasize that enough. We know we talk about it on the international stage, but we need to focus and understand the importance of voting locally. And then right after that, we'll get ready to close out. We'll have something, you know, from the host. Maybe I have a quote or something that we'll end the show with. But with that being said, with no further ado, Minister, what is the word of today?
All right. The word of today is going to be teaching, since we in that topic. Okay. Teaching. And teaching, by definition, one of its definitions is the process of attending to people's needs, experiences, and feelings, making specific interventions to help them learn particular things. Teaching is also a part of the broader concept of education. And some synonyms for teaching are to educate, instruct, school, tutor, train, coach, and enlighten. And then to leave it, I want to go into a spiritual thing on teaching, which actually comes from Matthew 7:12 and Luke 6:31. But I'm going to paraphrase. And it's called the Golden Rule. We talk about the Golden Rule, but that's actually a teaching which is basically to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, the scripture says it in a little more diagrammatic term, but that is actually a teaching. And that teaching was really about an instruction on how to live.
That's very important, because when we look at teachers, we need to understand the duty behind that and what it requires. So that definition of teaching is going to be something that help us out as we go through the program today. But we'll get right to that once we come back. We're going to go to a short commercial break and we'll get into our main topic of today.
What do all these people have in common besides a beautiful smile, healthy teeth, and gums? They all use Zadi toothpaste. Zadi toothpaste is made with all natural ingredients. Zadi toothpaste is fortified with moringa and baking soda. Zadi toothpaste is suds-free, making it an excellent choice for kids. All natural, fortified, and suds-free. Get yours today at noystore.com.
All right, so welcome back. And basically today we're just going to be following up on our last show where we kind of talked about the different trades and how trades are gaining hype. But we're going to go a little bit more. Well, we highlighted that, but we're going to go a little bit more into it because we also highlighted the Florida laws. And one of the things that we noticed within those laws, there was a lot of changes, legislative changes that occurred within the educational side of things. So we want to try to tie that in. So we stay on education and just try to highlight some of the things that may have changed when it comes to education. And I'm just going to give just a outline of what we're going to be talking about today, and then we're just going to kind of get into it. But it was a few laws that was implemented or went into effect here in Florida, and they all went into effect July the 1st. It was ASB, which is a Senate Bill 1264. Which adds the history of communism to required instructions in public schools starting in the 2026-27 school year. Then we had HB 931, which is the House bill authorized school districts to allow volunteer school chaplains. That's going to be interesting. SB 7032 provides tuition and fee waivers for high school dropouts who pursue diplomas and workforce credentials at state colleges. HB 1291 prevents identity politics from being included in college and university teacher preparation programs. HB 21 provides $20 million to compensate victims of abuse at the sheltered Arthur G. Dozer School for Boys in Mariana and another state reform school in Okeechobee County. And then last but not least, the SB 7002, part of a school deregulation effort led by Senator President Kathleen, how you pronounce that, bro? Last name that. Pasidimo, something like that.
Get it close, because I can't see it. But yeah, I can.
Well, she's a representative of Naples. Includes allowing districts to publish notice of intent to adopt tentative budgets on school board websites instead of in newspapers. So these are some of the ones that we're going to be talking about. Don't know if we're going to get through each and every one of them. We would like for you to chime in. You know, you can chat via Facebook, or if you're on YouTube, just send us a chat or a message. You know, we like to hear from you. But we'll start it off from the top. HB 1264. And then HB 1264, Minister, I know you kind of talked about this a little bit. We probably have talked about it a couple of times on the show when it comes to, make sure I got this up on my screen. When it talks about the history of communism to require instructions in public schools starting in 2026-27 school year. One of the points we want to touch on centers around the political ideologies around that, because what we talk about, there's a lot of talk around it. People have different ideas about it. Obviously, the governor had ideas about it. It may not be the same as some of our ideas when it comes to it, but he had his own ideas about it. But one of the things when we talk about communism, we think of the different states or countries that are still communist, if you will, that follows that as a form of their system. And I think you have about 5 different countries that still kind of follow that. And maybe that's where some of the separation comes from when you know, you look at America, you know, China is one of the biggest enemies per se. Yes. Which is a communist state. Cuba, which is a communist state. Vietnam and North Korea. Some of the major ones that I see that America's always in opposition against, which, you know, kind of brings me to the point of kind of just putting it out there. And I know you mentioned it before. And matter of fact, you shared a Bible scripture when it came to that. When you're looking at communism, when having all things in common, you want to kind of share a little bit on that?
Yeah, see, because it's like it's lots of ways you can view it, because there's many different forms of communism, and it's like if you're looking at it from a political perspective, or you looking at it from a spiritual perspective, on what it based. But because like when you first of all, like you pointed out, the first thing is you want to point into them as an enemy. Mm-hmm. Now we do have countries that have a different form of government, but you shouldn't look at them as an enemy. You should look at them as a different system, because then if you go back to school, if we become enemies, then it's like we always looking for a reason to start a fight,
right? Mm-hmm.
Versus getting along, you know, because I got red shoes, you got blue shoes, so we go fight about that,
right?
Versus finding some common ground. But see, America, we profess to be a Christian nation, and I'm gonna disagree with that, because that can be a whole. We profess to be a Christian nation, right? But according to the scriptures, if you believe, Christ, one of his main tenets was all that believe were together and had all things common.
Yes, sir.
Now that's the scripture, and that's Christ. That's what you say your Lord and Savior taught, and that's what you say you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. but you don't practice that in your government. And when another government practices it, you say they're communism and they evil. Now, granted, some of the communist governments do push things that we may want to consider them evil.
Right.
But in its pure form, if you want to do it scripturally, that means you have to say Christ was a communist, because he said in Acts chapter 4, all that believe together had all things common. So now that brings up a question. Well, is Christianity communist?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So, and then for you to, and now we fast forwarded to this has become a law, and it's going to be taught in coming up real soon. My question will be, I would like to see the curriculum and how are they going to actually implement that form of teaching,
Right.
and from what perspective? Like, what is your goal? Is it for educate? Because this is about the word of the day was teaching. If you're teaching it for educational purposes, if you want to teach, once you show what are the benefits of communism,
Right.
and then what are the pitfalls of communism,
yeah. The pros and the cons, yeah.
rather than just saying it's evil.
Right.
Because if you want to put the Bible in, so they say the Bible was taken out, but everybody say they believe in the Bible.
Right.
And Americans say they believe in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
We're a Christian nation. Christ said, all things in common.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we separate that, but then turn around and put that back together?
Right. No, that's important, and I believe that, you know, when it comes to the youth, they should be educated when it comes to history. But there's a lot of history that they should be educated on. And I think that's where most of the proponents talk about, you know, maybe against it, to say like, okay, if you're going to talk about this, then you need to talk about that. Or you're going to, if you're going to put this to the forefront, then they should also know about this here. And it's all education at the end of the day, you know, because if you're talking about the history, anything, that's all a part of history. Like slavery, for instance, we talked about this, and that's a part of history, regardless of, you know, what one may think. It's a part of history. And if you're going to teach one thing, you have to teach the other thing, because now you deny the child of really understanding and knowing history, because at the end of the day, they have to make their own decision about how they deem it, whether it's evil or not evil. Maybe there was some people that was in rulership that may have abused their leadership, you know, and that happens, because we talk about, you know, absolute power, what corrupts absolutely. So you have to have, I think you have to have check and balances in place. And I don't know how the systems are set up. I know it's based off of communism, but I would think within the structure of the hierarchy, there has to be some type of, you know, chain of command, if you will, to make sure certain things are done. And it may not be. It may not be. You know, that's my ignorance on it. But like you said, the makeup the makeup of it in its initial form, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you put man into positions and, you know, and you give them a certain amount of autonomy, you know, to exercise power over something, then that's where corruption come in at. And it ain't always meant like a person, you know, if you have a certain power, you may not intentionally look to abuse that power, but things happen, you know, as you gain more power, it just happened naturally.
Yeah.
So you have to have some checks and balances in place to make sure that doesn't happen.
And that's part of the problem with if we have a democratic where you elect your officials, but then you have some communist countries where the elections are not same, or it's a family.
Yeah.
And that power remains in that family. That means the wealth remains in that family. So it's going to get to a point of they want to keep the wealth within that family and with those who supporting them. So those at the top, see, this is where you see, because when you get man and they interject their twist on communism, now you have a few at the top suppressing the masses of the people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were in a situation to where there were limited amount of jobs and you needed people to work a particular job, well, these people do this job, these people do that job, these people do this job, and then all the resources go into the table and everybody benefit from it, which is how communism was supposed to work,
right?
Then it works well.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get those who sit at the top and then greed comes in, because when you're dealing with man and absolute power, all of a sudden it's, well, we want to keep this way forever. And then now you forget about, well, are we feeding the people?
Right.
When you're eating well,
mm-hmm.
but the people are starving, there's an issue. So I don't personally have a problem with teaching communism. The problem I have is when now you want to write it as a law,
mm-hmm.
but then you got other laws that you're signing in that you're taking away.
Right.
Like some of these ones that we get to talk about
right.
them. You're saying what can and can't be talked about. And you say it's supposed to be talked about in a truthful manner. But you don't want to talk about slavery
mm-hmm.
as if it didn't happen.
Right.
But then you want to talk about communism. Well, communism didn't happen in this country.
I was just gonna say that. It's a that's go ahead, sir.
That didn't happen in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we talking about it today?
Right.
Slavery did happen in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And then people in this country are still dealing with the effects of slavery
mm-hmm.
as it is. Yes, we've had a black president, but then we know black people in this country, the unemployment rate is higher than all. We have one of the highest unemployment rates.
Mm-hmm.
The wealth gap between former slaves and the slave owners is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got a black billionaire, but we got a lot of black people who still haven't gotten that American dream. The democracy still hasn't trickled down to them yet.
Right.
And we can point to some key points in slavery on where that took place. The same way you can point to points where communism took changes, we can point to points in slavery where the law was passed that slavery was supposed to be abolished, yet Jim Crow laws came into effect.
Mm-hmm.
And if we should be able to talk about the evils of communism, we should be able to talk about the evils of democracy.
Right. Because to your point, like you said, we're still suffering from post-slavery. Because if you look at the prison system, we make up probably less than a third of being in this country.
Yes.
Less than a third. But we make up a majority of us in the prison system. So
are we all bad people? So systematically, there's something wrong with that.
Right.
And if let's just say that if they all, how do they all become bad people?
Right.
Why is that? When if we're a Christian nation and we're all made in the image of God, why is certain people all bad?
Right.
Why is certain people all going to prison? There's something wrong in the system.
Right.
That's creating that outcome.
Yeah. And you just can't overlook that. You just can't take it out of the forefront of what's going on within this country, to look outside of this country, like you mentioned, at something that's going on in another country. Let's deal with what's going on in this country. Let's fix what's going on in this country. So don't take, critical race theory up out of the school systems. They need to know about it because, see, they can grow up and want to make changes.
Yep.
But if they don't know anything about it, guess what? They naive to it. So how can one, look to make changes within the system if you don't want it to be shared within the school system that a lot of people are integrated into, whether you're white or black, different cultures? Slavery, critical race theory has to be taught within the school system in order to make changes, because we're still dealing with the effects of it in this country now today.
If you go to if homeownership is one of the anchors of building wealth,
mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, you need to go before a bank or lending institution and get a loan.
Right.
But if your credit score is at a certain point, that it becomes very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people of color have a lower credit score. Why is that?
Right.
Because there's things systematically in place which cause it. Some black people have high credit scores, but the system, and you get things with redlining or economic inequities, which causes segments of the people to have lower credit scores. And if segments of the people got lower credit scores, they have less access to capital and funding.
That's right.
That means their children are going to be less educated. Their children are going to have less income, and it becomes a domino effect.
Right. Yeah, that's that's one of those ones that yes, we have to be educated about, global things, global events, but we need to definitely be educated about what's happening within our country. And that needs not to be swept up under the rug and say, you know what, we ain't gonna deal with that. No, we have to deal with it all. But we have to make some changes, which we're gonna be talking about there as we go further in, how we need to be doing certain things locally.
Yeah, but how is teaching about communism gonna change and benefit us here in America, other than making you feel a certain way about other people,
right,
globally,
right?
Because there's no communism in America,
right?
So how's that affecting the people in America? Like when they say we want to have a dinner table conversation, how's that a dinner table conversation when some people having problems putting dinner on their table?
Right.
That don't sound like a dinner table conversation to me.
You're right about that.
But my tax dollars, I pay my taxes, are going to be used to push that education. But in schools, public schools where black children are, they're not being taught the history of slavery and where they come from. So if you don't know where you come from, how you going to know where you're going?
Right. You'd be all confused. And it's important. I mean, people have emotions, right? We're going to have emotions about a lot of the events that occurred, but we have to get past it. You have to be able to talk about it to get past it. And I just feel like that's something that we definitely need not to overlook. And I don't even know how many years Sanchez got left in office. We got about 2 years.
I believe he is.
2 years left in office. But that's one of the laws that was passed. That's going to be something that's going to be implemented in the school system, 2026, 2027. So as your child talking about communism, you'll know what they're talking about, because that's one of the.
And it goes to your point of how we say why voting is so important. It begins locally.
Yes.
You need to make sure you're voting for people in your local community where you shop, where you go to school, where the police and the sheriff's are patrolling, so you can get people on these school boards. So when these laws get passed down, now they can look at implementing them in a way that's going to be beneficial.
Right.
Because if you get people in there with a certain mindset, the laws in each, because they're going into effect, it's not going to benefit.
Right.
It won't benefit you. It's going to benefit somebody other than you. And you can complain about it, but you can also vote to keep the right people in there who can have something to say about it.
Right. So there is an importance to us voting. And I know a lot of people may speak against voting, but that's more when you talk about national things, but local people that you can, like what my brother said, that you can talk to in the grocery store, people that you connect with within your community. We need to put these people in office that can make some changes for our community and provide resources so that we can uplift and raise our young men up. Is one of the things we do as MOP. They may not be teaching some of this stuff in the school system, so we take the youth out, take them to museums, so that they get educated about some of this stuff that's going on that they don't teach within the school system. So That's another way of providing some type of vehicle so that we can raise up our children in a way that they should go, that they have the information that they need in order to be successful, be in the know at the same time. All right, so moving on, we have.
I want to. It's like something in this bill. Just to point out how this. It says the bill requires the Department of Education to prepare to offer standards for the required instruction and allows for the DOE to seek input from victims of communism and organizations dedicated to the victims of communism. So if they got victims of communism, they would have had to been coming from another country.
Right.
They would have been immigrants here coming to this country. You say you're against immigrants, but if you're doing this for communism, victims of communism would have been coming from another country. Okay, and if they here in this country now and they are American citizens are working toward that, they should be going toward democracy. But what about the victims of democracy in this country, like slavery? Right. If we can talk about that, we should be able to talk about slavery. Otherwise, I have a real problem with that. Right. That it doesn't make sense to me how we can talk about someone can be a victim of communism, but you don't see where someone can be a victim of slavery. That's a real problem. That and you got it, and you wrote that in this bill. Right. And I'm glad you shared that. Because that's important. How else are we going to know about, the evils of it unless you bringing somebody from, that, country to talk about it. But you, like you said, you against immigrants coming over. Right. But you want them to come over and talk about the evils behind communism to teach our children, but you don't want to implement and put within our school system something that's in-house. Because we're talking about our house. Dealing with racism, critical race theory in our country, and dealing with the inequalities that we still deal with today. It ain't going. It hasn't went anywhere. We're still dealing with it today. The Confederate Army was fighting to keep slavery going. Now, people can debate on, was it? A lot of the war was about slavery. People from the South, that it was because they wanted to keep our people in slavery. They want to keep black people in slavery. That's what the war was being fought about. Those are facts. Right. We should be able to talk about that. If you're going to talk about a war on communism from another country, what about the war that happened in this country to enslave people who were being affected right here in this country? Right. We would, but you want to chime in?
Hello, y'all can hear me?
Yes, sir.
America is really more focused on being a superpower, and their global focus is only on prioritizing international issues over domestic ones.
Now that's real.
Yeah, because then the international, that means it can
point the finger.
I'm gonna be real careful. See, because you talk about communism, but you're doing the exact same thing under the guises of democracy. Right. See, you're saying you believe in democracy, which we're supposed to be a constitutional republic. That's what we're supposed to be. But you're really trying to throw that out of the window because the laws that you passing are almost theocratic if it's supposed to be laws for the people. Right. A certain segment of the people. And I guess if you're listening to this, because this is in Florida, you don't want to talk about slavery. I heard words coming out of your mouth and you said slavery. You said that slavery was some kind of way of benefit to black people. But you're supposed to be the governor of all people of the state of Florida. It's hard for me to take you serious when those kind of words come out of your mouth and I see the kind of laws that you're passing.
Right. Right. That is like that action speaks for who you are. Go ahead. You want to chime in again? No, but that's a deep conversation, and you can hear the passion when we're talking about certain things like this here. We have witness in this state. We're gonna talk about this state. We have witness in the state and in other states as well. But we're in this state here. So a lot of this information, a lot of these laws touch home because we talk about them on our show. So we research these laws, look them up so that we can inform our community about them. But I know this has affected the whole nation when it comes to removing some of the history that, have, really been in opposition against our growth in this country, has went against the fiber of how we as a people are built as humans, really.
Yes.
You can't dismiss that. You have to be able to talk about that, and to and to slap one in the face and say we're going to talk about communism, which is a more of a I ain't gonna say a global issue, but I'm gonna say it's an issue outside of this country. It's not a domestic, like my young brother was saying. Like, it's not a domestic issue.
It's not direct,
right?
And you may have some victims of who live here of communism, but by far and large, that's not a major issue that we dealing with here today.
Right. And
now, if everything was equal here, we could be having that conversation.
Right.
But it's hard to have that conversation when we see things that are inequities in the system. Now, DeSantis, he can be pro-business. I'm a business person. When you cut fees and make it easier for me to do business, that's great.
Right.
But then you turn it around and you hit me in the back of the head when I can't go hire young black people because they don't have a good idea who they are, and you getting them really confused. If they learn about communism, but they can't learn about slavery, or they can't learn about black history. Yeah. And I'm sorry when you say if slavery is gonna make a white child feel bad about what happened in history, what do you think me as a father feel when my black child gotta live with racism right now today?
Right.
I'm concerned about my black child being stopped by a police officer. That's real for me.
Right.
But you're concerned about what a child might make a child feel bad about what happened in the past. We're talking about what's happening today.
Right. And the thing about it, talking about it today will help everyone understand where it originated from. Because sometimes if and I can't say that, the officers are ignorant to what they're doing. But if you have a system that they was trained in that think and believe like that, then automatically we become the victims of anything that occur on the, I say on the side of error, if you will, because it is like our lives won't matter as much when you're trying to make a decision. And yes, I pulled out the wrong. I was supposed to pull out my taser, but I pulled out the gun. Would you have pulled that out if it was a child that looked like you, or a child that looked like your son, or a child, would you have made that wrong decision?
No.
There's a stigma within your department, your system, that causes you to act a certain way when you see black people. You can't tell me that's not a problem in our country, and it's not a problem that we have to deal with, because it is. And if you have your child that's going to school, that you're saying that you don't want them to know about that because they'll start feeling bad or feel a certain way, hopefully they'll understand that I shouldn't take on that same mindset to believe like my forefathers believed, and I should be looking to make a change in this country, that because we should be all equal human beings. If we want to stand up to the creed that this country is based on, you want the white child to sit next to the black child and be able to see them as an equal and a student as a peer, and say, I'm gonna work with you because you're a good person. If you're a hardhead, I don't want to deal with you. Right.
But I don't want to judge you because of the color of your skin. I want to judge you by the person. And we're not making this up. Unfortunately, I can't call the name of the young man, but a young black man can be jogging in America and you stop and you gun him down. You and your son, I can't call his name, but this happened recently. The young black man jogging Him and the father, y'all chase this man down and shoot him because he's a black man that's jogging. He broke no law. He did nothing because a system has taught you to look at him differently.
Right.
You don't need to be training your child about the evils of communism. You should be training them about the evils of democracy and race hatred right here today.
In this country.
If you want your child to be safe, then teach your child safety amongst all people that they have to be around.
Right.
Because you teach them in opposition to what's going to be to their benefit.
Right. No, that's real. Our time ticking down. Minister,
yeah, they comment. It's like, you got to be kidding me. You don't want us talking about history, black Richard, which is true history, but you want to talk about communism.
Yeah.
And you're making it a law.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Well, media outlets rather prioritize international stories that draw more views and advertise that, sometimes at the expense of important domestic issues. And political leaders and politicians make policies that may focus on foreign affairs to assert global leadership or distract from domestic issues.
Yep.
And that's, like you said, that's the distraction. They talk about everything that goes on everywhere else and just overlook what's going on domestically in this country.
Yeah. It's like, what's going on in Ukraine is horrible. What's going on in Palestine is demonstrably horrible.
Right.
But go to some cities like Chicago and Philadelphia. We even got some of it in we got, and I can say it, we got black youth shooting other black youth because they don't have a way out. They don't see a way there's no way out for them.
Right.
They don't see a future without violence or crime. You should be passing laws to change it because we can send missiles all the way to the other country. We can invest that money right here and we could change it overnight if we chose to.
Right.
But we don't care about that kind of a problem. So that's where we have to take some personal responsibility because we see, they can spend billions, probably trillions globally, but you can't spend millions locally.
Right.
That's why voting gets so important because your local people who get budget, they pass a lot of laws. And when that money from the feds trickle down, you need to hold your local representatives accountable. Are you spending that money to benefit us in our community?
Right.
See, now we got free speech in America. We can talk about a bonehead in office here in this state, but there's some good people in Florida that's fully awake and conscious, and we doing really good things in spite of the bonehead.
Right. No, you're right about that. There's a lot of good works that are going on. And, that's where, like you say, our local politicians comes in to play because, there's a lot of different organizations. When we always talk about, we ain't got to recreate the wheel, but there's a lot of different services that are needed out there, especially when it comes to dealing with us and dealing with our youth, because, that's why we coming up with a trade show.
Yes.
Understanding that our young black males, man, the choices that they are dealt with, is, we talked about the pipeline from school to prison pipeline.
Yep.
And this has been almost like a choice setup. They say 1 out of every black male has been in prison or been in some type of trouble. When you look at that's the statistics, and this is real. If you look at it, you find 3 black males, 1 of them been in prison. Yep. It just is what it is. But that comes from the creation of this system. That's how the system was created. And we have to be able to start organizations within our community with help our local representatives to give us the resources that are needed so that we can help our young black males and our young, black sisters as
Females
well.
as well. Yeah.
But most of our males are in prison or go to prison.
Yeah.
So we want to stop that so we can build a family back up, because without the black male, we already know, the family is destroyed without the black male. So we have to be able to put systems in place, but it requires our local politicians within our communities, those that we see in the grocery stores, those that we see in the community.
That's it.
Those are the ones that can help grow our community, build our community, and change some of the things that we're experiencing with our youth in our community, so that we can have a better future, for ourselves. So this is something that we always talk about, especially as MOP, and we always try to bring it to the forefront of our audience and to our community, so that we all conscious of it and that we all can do our part, All right, so
the beautiful thing, something that you said, I just want to add on to it, because see, when a young black man, when he got a job, when he got an income, when he got a career, when he got some finances and access, the sky's the limit. We are talented and incredible, but the opportunities have to be there, and we got to make them opportunities, and they begin locally.
Yes.
We can't wait for someone. We know the geopolitical thing, they go have us wait. You'll be waiting forever. But it starts locally. It starts at home, in your community, in your city, and the state, because that's the only way we're going to do it. We have to make these changes ourselves. If 1 in 3 black men go into prison, we got to change that to 4, to 5, to 10. And the way to do that is to put the resources in the right place. That means some education, teaching them to do the right thing. See, because if a young man if he can make money, he can take care of himself, he's good.
That's right.
If he can't, then he's going to go into survival mode.
Right.
See, slavery taught us. See, when you become a provider, but you want a man. So it's like now, when you have no other resources. See, here's the thing with slavery. When you teach 2 black men to get in there and fight to the death, and you win money on them, that's a part of the history that we have to understand.
Right.
That's what we were taught to do in this country. So you didn't look at your brother as your brother. You looked at him as a means to an end. We were taught to devalue one another.
Right.
That's what slavery and this institutionalism taught us. Now we have to teaching communism. We're not teaching brotherhood. Right.
That's real. You said something so real, and we have to be mindful of that. And I know, like, we've been placed in these communities, placed within the ghetto, and we're here, and it's like we're in a cage, and it's like a dog fight. We're trying to survive, but we're fighting against one another trying to survive. We're taking from one another trying to survive, and it's all within our community. So that's where the black on black crime occurs, and the mainstream media can talk about it and talk against us, talk bad about this and that and the other. But where all this stuff originates from slavery.
Exactly.
So if we can't talk about slavery and deal with some of this stuff here, how can we get past it? We have to deal with issues in order to get past it. That's why when I talk about coming up out of slavery, we all needed, some therapy. We all need to be, we need some free therapy that we need to be going to.
Yeah. They want to start some reparations. You need therapy.
Yes.
And it need to be paid for. Please do not tell me that you can send someone to Afghanistan or Iraq and they do a 6-month or 2, and heaven forbid they got to do 2-year tours and they come back with PTSD. You don't think slavery created PTSD?
Oh my goodness.
You don't think 400 years of slavery, 200 years of physical slavery, and another 200 years of mental created PTSD? But if PTSD is real and they need treatment, why do you think we have black on black crime?
Right.
Why do you think we have homelessness? Why do you think a man will produce a child and not want to take care of that child? Right. That's some serious PTSD, and it needs to be. See, you have to talk about a problem, address the problem in order to fix it.
Right.
But if you don't fix it, That's like having you got a drunken sailor running around.
Right. And that's real. And I think, like you say, reparations comes into play. You know, correct your issues, correct your problems, correct the things that you know that you contributed to. You know, why not try to correct it? What we got? What time is? Well, we got one.
Oh, wow.
1 minute on this topic.
We
Okay.
didn't talk about one law.
We ain't talking about one law. But we're gonna get to. We got 5 laws to kind of cover and get into. We don't have that much time left on the show, but we are going to. One of the other laws we talked about was HB 931.
Yes.
Volunteer school chaplains. It authorized school districts to allow volunteer school chaplains. And this was one of the ones that, because I had to ask the question, have chaplains ever been required or authorized to come into a school system, a public school system? And I don't believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe this happening anytime in the past. You know, of course, you have private schools where, you know, that's implemented, but like in the public school system, I don't think that's some that has ever been implemented before. But this was signed into law, so that now that the school system, the school district can allow or pick, I guess, a certain chaplain to come and volunteer in that school, which brings up, you know, points of how can that benefit the school, or can it benefit the school, or what would be some of the discrepancies that may occur with this happening? Want to chime in a little bit on that?
Yeah, it's if they, I can see that. Here's if you take it on the face value, I could see it being a very big benefit. Who's coming in with a sincere, coming in sincerely to help the students? The schools need all the assistance that they can get, but then it's going to call on those school boards to set up the parameters to make sure that don't go the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not turning the schools into churches.
Right, because that can be huge. We're gonna continue this, but we have to go to a quick commercial break. We're gonna come right back. Since we're talking about it, we're gonna go right back into it, but we're gonna go to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Joe, and I'm an enrolled agent with Scott & Associates accounting firm. As you can see, we work diligently for our clients, making sure that all of their tax and accounting needs are met. Come take a walk with me.
At Scott & Associates, we pride ourselves in providing exceptional service to our clients. We firmly stand behind all of the work that we do. However, we have also put measures in place to protect our clients should something ever go wrong.
To schedule a tax appointment for your business or personal need, text or call us today at 321-754-1360. And remember, you can always count on Scott.
All right, welcome back. And we're in the midst of talking about HB 931, the volunteer school chaplains, and minister was just sharing with us in regards to that. You know, what would be some of the guidelines they would put in place? You know, just thinking about what would be some of these guidelines that they would put in place to, you know, to just justify having a chaplain in the school system. And when we think about that, you know, you think about some of the roles of chaplains. You know, one of the roles of a chaplain is to provide religious services.
Yes.
Which we know that's against what's the first amendment?
It's supposed to be a separation of church and state.
Church and state. So I guess the other side will be like counseling or giving some type of guidance to the students, providing that type of education, or probably providing something like that. I can see where we do have to look at what you mentioned, like how is that's going to be implemented, what it's going to look like. I can see where, like, in nowadays, like, our youth are so, how can I say it? They're so confused about a lot of things. And they oftentimes go to their peers. I think more so than anything. I don't even think they go to their parents about certain things. They go to their peers. Going to your peers sometimes may not be the best solution. Especially depends on how their background and how they've been raised. Having someone of authority like that that a child can go to, I think is a great thing. Because they bring values and principles. Maybe not, from a religious standpoint, I don't think it's a great thing, because when you think about it from a religious standpoint, I think you alluded to this here. If you're Catholic, then maybe you're going to try to push that on that person. Or if you have a Islamic background, you may try to push that on a person. So I guess those are the gray areas, if you will.
See, you say you're supposed to describe the support services or programs that the volunteer school chaplain may be assigned. And it does say somewhere that the parent would have to be notified. But that's where it's gonna, if it's gonna fall on a local school board or superintendents to set this up, you need to have people in there who are level-headed enough, because a child could be going through a crisis and they're not comfortable talking to their parent. They might not be comfortable talking to a teacher. See, a chaplain might be somebody they could talk to. It could be a benefit if I'm gonna go all the way out. If they got some issues and they thinking about coming in there shooting up the school, be a good idea for them to talk to someone who could find this out and then give them the right direction, so something like that wouldn't happen. But the other side of that is, because we have many different faiths in our school system, you want to also respect, for example, it could be a Muslim child with an issue. If he's a Catholic, using that as an example, you want him to be able to talk to them, but then that chaplain would need to be trained enough to respect that child's faith. Because if you were a Baptist, you would want a Muslim teacher, a Muslim chaplain, to respect your faith when talking to your child. So it shouldn't be, it's like, that's not going in there as like I'm saying, it shouldn't be church and school, but it should be chaplain services, because chaplains are there to help you facilitate certain things. So that's what are those parameters for?
I was looking up a term when I was looking up chaplains, and I say, well, maybe if it's a let's see if I can pull that up real fast, because I was thinking about a humanist chaplain, right? And a humanist chaplain is an individual who provides secular, non-religious pastoral care and support to people in various settings, such as hospitals, university, the military, or other organizations. It went on to say, like, humanist chaplains offer emotional support, guidance, and counseling to individuals regardless of their religious beliefs or affiliations. Humanist chaplains typically adhere to a humanistic philosophy that emphasizes the value and dignity of every individual, and the importance of reason, ethics, and compassion in guiding human behavior. Now, as I was kind of reading that, I was saying, like, okay, so you can have certain chaplains that comes in that don't have a bias to a certain religion, but understand the principles, the morals, the ethics behind being a more human being, and provide those type of services that can benefit any religious group, any nationality or any religious group. I think that's more of a neutral ground that can offer those type of services to, those individuals without providing that religious side of things.
And see, the question becomes, what is the purpose of putting a chaplain? Because if it's for the spiritual and that support, that's great. But if if they're not getting their religion at home, are you saying they should get it at the school? Is that the reason they're setting it up? But if it's for support, then we could put, like, example, we should have mental health counselors in schools. That's necessary. I think chaplains would be a chaplain who came in. Young people be growing up. You could have a boyfriend, girlfriend breakup. They might need somebody to talk to.
Right.
They see, and you might not feel comfortable talking to mama about that. You may not feel comfortable talking to your dad about that.
Correct.
But you can go talk to the chaplain about that. And he can help you get through that because he's looking at you from a spiritual guidance and a counselor. It could be very beneficial as long as the guidelines are set up and that's the purpose that they're there for. But it's like, yes, but then they saying these are volunteers. So it's being set up, and if it's not being, that's the scary part. So once you set this up, do you have 100 volunteers that you just finna go, that you got marching orders to go to all the schools?
Right. Because I mean, like, I think we talked about it earlier. If you got 2,000 students in the school, you got a big school system. I mean, one chaplain ain't gonna be able to service those many that many children. So you're gonna have to have other chaplains that volunteer, because there's a lot of issues I think our youth deal with, and just to be real, they don't like to bring it to their parents.
No,
they don't like to talk to their parents about that. So when issues occur like that, social media be one of the first outlet they go to try to search for answers.
It's all kind of, and that's full of misinformation.
Right.
Full of bad advice.
You go ahead. You want to chime in?
Yeah, and if I could chime in, mental health is real bad for this generation. With me going to school, I would see the kids, they're not like, no one really sitting there stunting them or caring for them like that. They really got bad drug addictions. That's what they turn to. They're vaping in the schools, in the hallways. And nowadays, how these vapes are set up, they could discreetly smoke it in the bathroom. That's their way of dealing with their stress. I feel like they really should have like a mental health facility in the school or something like that.
I see that, and the chaplains would have to be a liaison and a step, because he make a beautiful point, a wonderful point.
Yeah.
The mental health is needed. Why won't you put the funding in there? Because it's needed. But it's like, because you think you can't pray. It's like what you're trying to pray away the problems. You can't pray away problems. Like a lot of one of the main problems in high schools and even colleges, young kids some of them are homeless, and a lot of them go to school hungry every day.
Right.
They can't eat. They don't have food, so how are you gonna? And it's fact upon fact. You're not gonna function academically if you're hungry.
That's real.
You can't function right, and you're gonna make bad decisions. Like you might be in there vaping. You get caught, then you get caught. And see, vaping is one thing, but they maybe doing more than vaping.
No, they're doing more than that.
That's one of them they doing, but they doing drugs, they doing pills, they doing and that not only can get you suspended or kicked out, but it could get you killed. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. The purpose of this, if like you put this in for what purpose? Chaplains in the school for what purpose? Because if you was talking about mental health, we need to put mental health counselors in this. You need to have mental health counselors, in my opinion. They need to be on the campus.
Right.
Because if a kid coming to school hungry and he's sleeping, he might have a car, but he's sleeping in his car.
Right.
That's tough. Or that kid can't go home, or she can't go home for some reason.
Right. And they don't have enough counselors in the school, and they probably don't deal with it from that point of view. You know, they kind of deal with trying to make sure that you're on the right track to finish in high school. That's
economic. That's for the education.
Right.
But what about the personal issues?
Right. And you have to have these things in these school systems. Look at the youth today. You know, the youth today to me is worse off than, you know, the youth when I was growing up. You know, and maybe, like I said before, maybe social media is a large part of that. But like he alluded to, you know, drugs, they lean upon drugs as a solution to their issues, but their problems don't go away. Alcohol. But their problems are still there. So what they do, look for more drugs to take. Look for a higher dose of drugs to take. So now most of our youth are on drugs. So when you do try to have a conversation or talk with them, they're so, you know, on cloud 9 or 10 that they can't hear you anyway, or they're not listening to you anyway. So that's an issue within our community that we have to deal with. And that kind of goes back to, you know, how they've been raised, like the family household. Parents may be on drugs, you know, so you have to. I just think you do have to have a exit strategy within the school system if that can help out. If you can bring a chaplain in there, I would like to see if that's something that probably could benefit a lot of the youth. Maybe not. Probably something that we can look at and see. But they do need another outlet outside of social media, their peers. And obviously, if they don't have parents,
or no outlet,
right?
and with no outlet, you just do the worst. Because I could see where the chaplains could be a good benefit, but I just hate that. I don't want to be cynical, but with the agenda that certain people have, I don't know if you're doing this for political reasons or you're doing it for genuine. Because if you Now, I heard the teachers got a raise. I don't know if it can put some more money into the school system. Like mental health is real. We need to be putting mental health counselors in the school for the children. I think that would be a big benefit, so they would have access to it. And if you want to put the chaplains, that just gives us another layer. But if we saying that there's a problem in the schools, like I'm saying, why are we doing the chaplains? The chaplain's not going to be there to teach them like physics,
right,
and English, right?
Right.
They need teachers for that.
Right.
And if they got parents and stuff at home, that's you need some you need social workers or some. So it's like if there's a problem in the school, why not put part of the money in the school budget to address it? You're asking for volunteer chaplains. What if the chaplain can only volunteer once a month?
Right.
So how's that a benefit for the students?
Right. Or
like I say, or is it your agenda that you're gonna have a army of volunteers coming into the schools pushing an agenda? So it's like, are you really serious about this student? Like, what is the purpose of this? Is this to help the students? If so, what are you trying to help them with?
Right. I mean, it's a lot of questions that centers around that, you know, because we know sometimes people can have their own agenda. They can look at a situation and say, okay, we're going to do this here to prevent this or stop this here. We'll have to know what that is, you know. So like if children are being swayed to do something that one may feel like, okay, they're on the wrong path. We need someone with some influence that has some values to be able to, you know, to kind of direct them in the right direction. Because you look at, if you look at from the church standpoint, the church, even in our community, has always been that guiding light. You know, from slavery days, you know, we always went to the church for, you know, to get some type of, you know, I guess sanity, sanity, if you will. You know, because when you look at, you know, our condition, it's like, you know, why are we going through all this hell? You know, it's like, so Pastor, share with me why this is happening and make me feel better about me going through this hell. So the church has always been that type of, place that we went to for that type of shelter and information, and that's to calm our nerves, if you will. So I don't know if that's a way of just bringing someone within the school system.
We're in the century that we're in. It's like, I'm gonna use an example. If we feel that teen pregnancy is a problem, or children having children is an issue, are we trying to send chaplains in for that purpose? Is that what because that's a horrible. We need to be having open conversations about sexuality and sex and pregnancy and responsibility. That shouldn't be. It's like, because now I mean that the chaplain need to be teaching a class, or you need to have someone. Let's get some professionals to talk about teen pregnancy, and that should be on the curriculum. That should be a part of the curriculum.
Right.
You trying to go around it and like because you're not gonna pray that away.
Right.
It's not. You can tell the kids, well, don't have sex because God is watching you. It's like, come on, that's why they still getting pregnant.
Right.
So it's like, that's not gonna be the answer. That can be a support system, but if that's the issue, we need to be talking about it and addressing the issue. Or if hunger is the issue, okay, the chaplain can talk about that. Is the chaplain going to be able to feed the students?
Right.
We need to be doing something to get food to them.
Right.
Like, see, like I don't want to make a false sense of what we doing when we know we got problems. So rather than address the problem, we want to throw a chaplain at it. Because we think chaplains go stop them from getting pregnant. We think chaplains go stop the kids from doing drugs. We think chaplains go stop them from being dropouts. Like, what is the actual purpose of it?
That's true. No, you made some key points. I guess it, in a sense, is a start from somewhere. We are at that point as far as breaking news. We were in the mix of it.
I think we hit it.
I think our time took us right into that part because we, where we at now and what was mentioned to us, audience, because our engineer always try to keep us on time. As we go to our first commercial break, we try to come back with local news. The only thing is, one of our missions are to try to share the importance of, and we talked about this a little bit, our local voting, which that was one of the things that we was going to talk about. But getting into this particular law about bringing a chaplain into the school system was one of the things that we kind of veered off on, because that was one of the laws that we want to talk about. Actually, it's about 7 different laws that from the educational side that we want to kind of touch on. And I know we was going to probably kind of take a lot of that time just even talking about some of the laws that we're talking about.
And these laws went into effect July 1st.
Yes.
We're not just bringing this up. These they on the books. Right.
They already passed. Even when we're talking about the one before this, communism. Although it goes into effect, but it already passed to go into effect the year 26, 27. But it's already passed, already written into law, already signed into law. A lot of these laws are already signed into law. So there it's just about them implementing, putting in place, having a certain, regulations or how they're going to implement all this stuff here. But they already signed it, is in law, in effect, and it's going to happen. Just like with the chaplain, we're talking about it right now. Like, what is that truly going to do? Because we're still dealing with a lot of things that our youth are dealing with. Like you mentioned, teen pregnancy and all this here. Why can't we just have, a class on teen pregnancy? Yep. I love that idea. Why we can't have someone from, expert in mental health come into the school system and speak about mental health? I think that's a wonderful idea. Why we can't put money to it within the budget so that we can provide funding that we can do some of these things that need to be done to better assist our youth, knowing that they are, led astray may not be coming from a healthy family. Why don't we put more money within the budget to go towards some of these things? So these are some real concerns that we're dealing with, and we deal with this stuff within our own community.
We putting money into teaching communism, but we can't put money into it so the kids can have a mental health professional to talk to, even if they had to say, you can get 30 minutes a week, an hour, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's needed.
It's needed. It really is.
And I feel like they should sit there and like if they see a kid and they might think he has a drug problem, they should allow it to where they could drug test that kid at the school and not scare them away where they think they might get arrested, but to help them. So now their parents could probably look out for that before they go into the schools. And even when I was in school, how much weapons they'll be able to bring in there, they need to invest into metal detectors, because they can have metal detectors everywhere else, but not where our children go to school at. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. No, that's real.
It showed that your values are somewhere else.
Right.
When we say we have these family values, but we don't seem to be protecting families, or we don't seem to be protecting all families.
Right. There is a particular family that we want to protect. But we know who deals, and I always tell people this here, I don't always try to beat up on, and I don't really, they got the Democrats, Republican, and every the right lane, left wing, and all this stuff here. And I always hear people say the Republicans are for, the rich and for white. That can be true. One of the things that like my mom, before she passed, she always said, you're supposed to vote Democrat. I said, why am I supposed to vote Democrat? And she really couldn't share that with me, but she was just saying because most black people, vote Democrat. And I remember at the time it was Charlie Crist. He was going for governor, and he had some great values. He was a Republican, great values, everything. I said, man, he has some great conservative values, and I really, I said, man, that's the person that I would rather vote for. Then I think at the time it may have been Childs or something like that. And I don't know what Childs had going on at that time, but we have to look at the values of the individual that's in office or going, trying to pursue office, outside of the fact that they're a Republican or Democrat, because values do matter, And when I think about it from that standpoint, oftentimes within our community, because a person may be Republican, we don't look at having those conversations with them, because you have to remember, if that person white, they only can contribute to what affects them as being a white male or a white female, unless they hear from the other side. A lot of times we swear away from that, and we don't deal with. No, you need to know. They need to know what's affecting us in our community, so they can better address what's affecting us in our community. Yes, we do want somebody to look like us in our community, but if we don't get them, we need to be advocating for the same change, no matter who is in office. I don't care who is in office. You talk to that person the same way you talk to somebody that look just like you. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's all about accomplishing the goal of bettering our community. And if we don't have those conversations with those with white people, whomever it is that's in office, we'll never get the resources that we need in order to better our community. I think it's very important that we understand that, and look beyond just Republicans and Democrats or whatever. They got us in this system of Republican, Democrat. Listen, at the end of the day, we are all human beings.
Yep.
And we should be able to acknowledge the wrongdoing of one human being and see the inequalities of what's going on with the other human being and make some changes accordingly. That don't always happen though, but we should be able to make those changes. And for those individuals that can see that and acknowledge that and don't look to make those changes, we need to be getting their butt out of our office.
And just because he look like you, if his values don't align with you, you shouldn't vote for him just because he look like you,
Right.
just because he or she got a deal on their name
Right.
or are.
Right.
You need to look at their values and system. Like I remember, I voted for Chris. I thought he did a wonderful job. He was the best at the time he was there. I felt he was the best person for the job.
Right.
But you got to be able to look at the person and what they stand for, and then hold their feet to the fire.
Right. Right.
The same way you can call their office in Tallahassee. Call to talk to the representative. You got to hold them, but it all starts local.
Right.
It starts local from the state up all the way up. But voting is important. It is very important because the people who are making these decisions, they're spending your money.
Right.
They're being paid with your money, and then they're spending your money in some cases to benefit you, but in many cases they spending your money to oppress you.
Right.
So you need to be careful who you're voting for. And
That's
just
true.
because I'm like, just because they look like you, they may be doing things, spending your money away you don't want them, that you wouldn't spend your money.
Right. That's true. And we have to hold them just as much as accountable as we hold anybody. Because that's real. Oftentimes, we think just because they look like us, they're working for us, but that's not always true.
No.
And we just have to be mindful of that as well, But I think what we're looking at on time. Okay. All right, cool. I don't know if we have time to get into any other law. I do want to, I guess we can briefly talk about this law here. And it was SB 7032, support for high school dropouts. We've been kind of, in a sense, talking about that. But provides tuition and fee waivers for high school dropouts who pursue diplomas and workforce credentials at state colleges. If you don't have all your credits, and let's say you're a credit from having the credits that you need to have, or 2 credits from having the credits you need to have to graduate. I know at Jones, they was able to, some of my classmates were able to walk. Although they didn't get their diploma, they had to come back and kind of finish some classes to get their actual, credits so that they can officially say that they graduated from high school. But those are some things I don't know how it is today. But I guess based off of this particular law here, and if you do have it up, Minister, and you want to read it, please do.
Yeah, and now this one I actually like because it looked like it's making an opportunity for those who dropped out. They put in the resources where they can actually go in and making it easier for them to go back in through one of these programs and get their high school diploma on equivalency. Because that's going to be a springboard to getting a job.
Right.
And this is one I'd have to do more research because I'm trying to read it. But if it looks like this one is giving them an opportunity where they can actually go back in and get it. Even if they're not going directly to the high school, they'd be able to get it through one of these. They call it a GATE program.
Okay.
It's a graduate alternative traditional education or graduate scholarship program. And it's basically aimed at re-engaging students who are withdrawn from high school by providing opportunities to earn career education credentials while also completing a standard high school diploma or equivalent credential. Now, this one seems like that could be very promising for someone who's dropped out because they give them an opportunity where they can get back in.
Right.
And they may not necessarily have to go in, like if you were 17, 16, and you dropped out and now you 18, 19, it's hard to go back to high school. You don't want to go back in a high school format, but it seems like this will give them an opportunity where they can get it without necessarily going back to high school.
Right. And then that kind of helps out when we talk about vocational school.
Yep.
Because in most cases, you do want to have some type of diploma. Because and based off what I'm hearing, and what I think it was intended to, is for them to get their diploma opposed to just a GED.
Yes.
Which now it kind of represents you completing your education on on the natural level that most of people that graduate and walk the stage would get like a diploma. And I think it's other schools. I'm trying to think about my niece. I think she went to a school like that where it allowed for her to walk to get her diploma, but at the same time she still had to make up some credits or something like that. But she was able to get an actual diploma, opposed to and I don't know what the difference is. What's that difference? Like if it's a GED, like does it say GED or is it like a high school diploma?
Nowadays, it's about as equivalent as a high school diploma. It actually says high school diploma on it.
Okay, on the GED.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because it holds the same merit, and it almost looked like this program allows them to get the high school diploma or the GED, but also it seems like it's putting them in a point where they could be going to like a technical school to begin to earn some kind of career credits. It looked like moving toward work, which if you can take them off the streets and get them back in school and education, that's a bonus, especially if I sound like they putting the funding in there to pay for it, where it's like if they didn't have the money, they enroll in the program and it'd be paid for.
Okay. So basically the program is a way for them to go back, get their education without paying anything.
Yes.
Okay. So that's a plus, because I think that's much needed. Something that will be helpful, especially to our young men that haven't finished high school. Give you opportunity, in our young women that haven't finished high school, give you opportunity, go back, get your diploma, and don't have to pay anything out of pocket. They're providing, as from what I'm hearing, the funds, so that you can be able to go back to school to get that degree. We got what we're looking at, 1 minute. All right, so at this time, we're getting ready to get into the part that we got to close out. We're coming up on that time. We got 1 minute. So, Minister, I know we're on the cover, by 2.5 laws, but I guess we'll have to come back and deal with the remaining of these here, because we're still going to be talking about the trade show that we're going to be having coming up. So we want to make sure that people know about that and that they can come out and partake in that as well. But I'll let you go ahead, Minister, and close out.
Yeah, and we talking about education, and we talking about the laws that are taking place. Be conscious that the laws that are taking place around you can and will affect you. So you want to position yourself to benefit. And if there's some cases where you can benefit from these laws, you want to make sure you benefit them. Or if they're in a position where there may be opposition, then you want to try to do your best to protect yourself and shield yourself from it, because they are coming.
Right.
And they are being passed, right, and they're going in. But that's why we really going to be pushing this trade show coming up, so we can show that there are some alternatives. And the key is we have to be the ones that make a difference. We're not looking for somebody outside of us. If they want to help support us, that's great. But we have to be the difference in our children's lives.
Right. And with that being said, because I think that was beautifully said, there are ways that you can help us by donating to our cause. It's a lot of things that we are doing in the community and things that we're looking to do in the community. And like the minister said, we have to be the ones that step up and fund this here, because we may not always get the resources we need, or we'll get resources with restrictions on what we are able to do with it. So, exactly. So we want to make sure that we fund what we need within our community. That's the best way that we can make the change that we're looking for in our community. All right. So with that being said, from the host, I'm going to say peace and prosperity. And from Live Talk, we are out.
Thank you for watching Live Talk. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit on the notification button so that you can see more videos like this. You want to join the show? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook and Instagram at Arthur Jeremiah. And visit the website, thenoystore.com, to pick up your copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name.